Hello, 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 welcome to my first ever vid. Today I thought I'd keep it nice and simple and paint up an Ultramarine for beginners. We're going to start off using Macragge Blue as a base, and you want to add water to the paint so that when it dries it does so without leaving any paint streaks. If you add a little too much water like I did, silly goose, it takes another couple of coats to cover the area, like 2 or 3 should be good for perfect coverage. As you can see, it's only a couple coats. This base coat came out super smooth. No airbrush required, but obviously if you have one, obviously use that. What are you doing, you silly duffer? Ugh. Now we have the secret sauce. This is a 50-50 mix of Nuln Oil and Lamy Medium. I'm using the old Nuln, so if you have that, it might be a little bit stronger and need more dilution. That's why you got 50-50. The new stuff, not as strong, don't need as much. So maybe 75-25. God, it took me a second. Cover the whole model in this mix, and what it's gonna do is shade the whole thing. That means you don't have to do any unnecessary recess shading later, so it keeps it nice and clean. The Lamy Medium also serves as a kind of varnish save point, if you will, so that if you make a mistake from there on out, you can just rub it off. And even if it's dried, you can still rub it off and it won't take off any of the blue paint underneath. For black, I usually use Vallejo Model Color as it gives a much smoother, more matte finish, but since this is a beginner's guide, I'll use what most beginners probably have, which is Abaddon back, and yes, it's pronounced Abaddon, not Abaddon. Come on, grow up. You could also do the step before the Nuln wash, so that if you make a mistake, you can paint over it with the blue, easy touch it up. We're just hitting all the pouches and soft, sensitive Space Marine parts near the groin and joints. I don't know what they're made out of though. It's like rubber? Future rubber? Clark rubber? Our first blue highlight is going to be with Calgar Blue, and I've got this 00 brush. Well, I guess it's 00. No, 00 brush that is beat up. It's only got about half the bristles it originally had, and that actually makes it a better brush because I can just use the side of it, and it is so small that it only hits a very small area. Obviously, when you're doing this step, you want to use the smallest brush you have. Next highlight is going to be with Warhammer Blue, and again going over the same edges but in a smaller area and focus towards the top of the model. As you can see here, I made a little mistake and I just rubbed that off with my little finger, my itsy bitsy little finger. And finally, the final highlight is going to be with the 50-50 mix of Warhammer Blue and white or ivory. I used ivory, you can use white. Ivory keeps it more saturated, white keeps it desaturated. So our choice really. Make sure to hit the highest parts of the model. Now that the blue is done, we'll move on to the gold, and the simplest method is using Retributor Gold, which is a fairly good coverage gold and only needs about like 1 to 2 coats. You're going to cover the gold with Reikland Flesh Shade, or have I written here Slash Shade. If you have gloss, it's even better on metallics, but don't worry if you don't. I don't. It's fine. It's your first model, don't worry. Second top tip is to surround the taller GW pots with other closed ones so that if you knock it over, it won't fall and go everywhere. Now, if it does happen, quickly grab a straw and suck it up and pop it back into the pot. That's the quickest and easiest method, so I'd do that if I were you. The final highlight of the gold will be done with Liberator Gold, and just like the others, you're just hitting the edges. Very easy. If you've gone over any parts with the gold, I get a little Nuln oil and I pop that into the recesses, so that should cover it up. Metal parts are up next, and I go with a metal colour burnt iron, but GW's lead belcher will do. It's what most people have, so I'll use that instead. Mine is the air variety, so it doesn't need to be thinned down, but like with all the other paints, you'll probably want to thin yours down a touch. Paint all the silver parts, and it's going to look pretty flat after you do so we're going to add Nuln oil to give it depth to the recesses. We're going to highlight with Runefang Steel after that. To highlight the black, I used Mechanica Standard Grey and did all the edges like I did with everything else up until this point. The final part is the lens, and the simplest way to do that is painting the whole area white and then flooding the whole lens with Blood Angel Contrast Red. And there you have it, finished Ultramarine Space Marine. I hope you enjoyed the vid and got something out of it. This has been Pierce Paints, and thank you for watching.